Today I'm going to be talking about something almost everyone has, a mother. A lot of people look up to their mother and see them as strong women, but how often do you think about how they're treated in the workplace? Motherhood discrimination is way more common than you might think. Picture this. Your mother comes into work late, 5 minutes late, and so does her male coworker. Your mother says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I had to bring my kids to school," and so does the male worker. Then her boss says, "Come on, you know you can't let your outside life affect your work life," to your mother. Later, while sharing coffee, the boss says to the male coworker, "Hey, did you ever think you would be stepping into the role of caring for the kids? I bet your wife really loves you." How ridiculous is that? You may be thinking that I'm over exaggerating, but this is a prime example of what happens to working mothers each day. Motherhood discrimination is overlooked and not usually talked about. So let's talk about it. I'm going to start off with punctuality. I just mentioned that one example of mothers being treated differently when it comes to their timeliness, but I'm going to dive even further into this. On average, a mother can be late one less times without being reprimanded for it compared to anyone else in the workplace. You're probably thinking, so what, one extra time? But think about the extra time a mother is late. Maybe her child is sick, or there's a 2-hour delay at school, or even just a dentist appointment. Now think about why others are usually late. You're getting coffee, you slept in after a big sports game. A mother being late for something like taking care of a child should not be more acceptable than a non-mother being late for a personal reason. This one extra okay late system was proven by a study done by Harvard graduates, so if you're thinking this is just women complaining, it's not. There's a double standard set for women. They need to be able to carry a household and be more punctual than their other coworkers. And for women, if you're listening to me right now, and if you're thinking, "Oh, well, I'll just make sure I'm on time to work," it doesn't take a lot of imagination for you to realize that punctuality is just an easy marker to measure discrimination. Moms are held to a higher standard in all aspects of their job. In general, mothers are also seen as less committed to their work, even if they are timely. Mothers, in fact, are seen as 12% less committed than non-mothers, while fathers, on the other hand, are seen as 5% more committed to their job. This perception is not surprising. For most people, who would pick you up as a child if you were sick? For me, at least, it was my mom. So her supervisor might see her as less committed than a male coworker who isn't going to pick up his sick kid. The thing about this is it isn't a matter of availability. It's not a matter of commitment, it's a matter of availability. Men with wives typically have the ability to not go get their child. They can have their wife do it so they don't have to leave work as often for child-related issues. Most fathers are also seen as are also perceived as being less committed to. They're also not as good. They're also seen as not as good for caring for their sick child, so the duty falls onto their wife. The other factor of this is how it looks from a social perspective when it comes to sick children. Women are seen as cold if they don't go care for their child, but are seen as less committed to their job if they do go care for their child. While on the other hand, men are seen as professional heroes because they are putting their work life ahead of their personal needs. In my opinion, if you're going away from a throwing up child, it's not heroic. Staying with that child is way more impressive. If the man does choose to go pick up their child, he is often acclaimed as a romantic hero because he's just oh so sweet and thoughtful for going to pick up his child for his wife. Meanwhile, women are faced with a double-edged sword of choosing between being perceived as a good mom or a good worker. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about something now I know everyone just loves to talk about: money. Most people understand the basis of the gender wage gap. Even if you don't think it's a real issue today, you know how the idea behind it. Men in the US can make as low as 65 cents to every male dollar. This tends to go away when adjusted to specific fields and very specific experience levels. But it just so happens that the fields with primarily female workers have their labor viewed as less. How surprising. In any case, that is not what I'm tackling right now. Surprisingly, there is a larger gap between mothers and non-mothers than there is between men and women as a whole. This has to do with the motherhood wage penalty. The motherhood wage penalty, I know this might sound shocking from the name, but is a penalty wage given to mothers. The penalty also relates to the amount of kids you have. So if someone has 5, your penalty is probably greater than a mother of 1. Although for fathers, this is the complete opposite. Men are usually given a raise when they have a child. This shows how our historically patriarchal society still contributes in the workforce today, where men get more money because they need to provide for their families, For the same act of having a child, which I would definitely argue is harder for the women, they are still finding that their wage is decreasing, while men find the increase. Women become distracted caretakers, while men become noble providers. The wage issue usually equals out in a heterosexual relationship, though, with the male raise equaling out to the female's penalty. Yet single mothers or lesbian couples are just losing money without anyone else in the household being able to pick it up. The other issue with the wage penalty is the lower paying your job is, the more likely you are to carry the penalty. The penalty should not exist in general, but it definitely should not affect the most vulnerable women the most. One more systemic issue to feed into the poverty cycle we have today. On average, a baby costs about $15,000 per year. If your income is $30,000 and it goes down even more when you have the child, it is very hard to pay for that new baby and a place to live, and even to just take care of yourself in general. A lot of pressure is put on anyone to have and raise a child and provide for themselves as well, but for single low-paid mothers, this is almost impossible with this penalty. And before you say, well, you should not have a child in general, I'd like to remind everyone of 6th grade health class. If you can't remember, it takes 2 people to have a baby. It's just a lot easier for one of them to walk away. I would like to finish my talk with some final thoughts for you. Think about your mom, think about your grandmother, your aunt, a female in your life. Do you see them as less committed to their job? Do you think they should be paid less because they have a child? I would hope that you would think no. You think that they deserve to be treated equally to others. Now, wouldn't you want to know the issues they face in the workplace? Wouldn't you want to know? So please help. Yes, things are improving in the year 2021, but it's crazy to think that this is still an issue today. Maybe if it is addressed more often, we could have a different ending to my story I said at the beginning. Let's continue the conversation so that male and female workers can both be given more leeway when it comes to picking up their child, not just the male worker. Let's make it so our mothers are treated equally. Let's finally make motherhood discrimination an issue of the past.